What's brown and sticky?
Ooh, my stress ball that I break all the time.
No, a stick.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I've
I hope.
been telling that to my puppy when I take him out for a walk.
Oh man. Yeah, for all the animal welfare orgs that are joining us today, Brack is a Brack won't tell you because he's too cool for that, but he rescued his puppy recently.
All right, let's get rolling here. Enough with the jokes. Welcome to today's webinar, lead scoring, how to identify which donors warrant more of your limited time. After today's presentation, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So feel free at any point during the presentation to post your questions. I'll flag those and we'll make sure that Matt answers those at the end. Today, you're going to hear from Matt. Matt is the CEO and founder of CauseMic. The CauseMic team is deeply steeped in the nonprofit sector and committed to bringing best-in-class for-profit solutions to help you grow. Today, Matt's going to share some of the lessons that we have learned in helping hundreds of nonprofits just like you grow quickly. Let's get rolling. Take it away, Matt.
Oh, thanks, Brack. And hey, thank you for the work that you put into making this thing broadcast on this webinar, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on anywhere else that it's being broadcasted. So we appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. What are we going to talk about today? You know it. We're going to talk about lead scoring, but more specifically, I want to go over, well, really like defining lead scoring and making it irresistible to you. Then we're going to demystify the use of AI in lead scoring. I know everyone's talking about AI. It's a little bit daunting. How does this work? How does it get incorporated into lead scoring? We're going to demystify that for you. Then we're going to dust off our market researcher hats and we're going to talk about which data points really matter for growing unrestricted revenue. And of course, we've got time for those hard-hitting questions that I know you're going to pose up in the Q&A that Brack will feed me at the end. So let's get going, shall we? I'm sure that you think we're going to start with defining lead scoring, but I actually want to start with talking about the importance to your nonprofit before we dive into defining what lead scoring is. And this is partly to keep you hooked, to keep you here at this webinar, because you're going to hear exactly why this is absolutely critical. Here's the thing. I've been a frontline fundraiser. I bet there's a lot of frontline fundraisers who are here with us on this webinar. And one thing most of us fundraisers know is that the quality of interactions is more important than the quantity of interactions. Marketing helps us build brand awareness for our nonprofit, and it generates these incredible leads. The truth is that not all of those leads are likely to give us a major gift. And so we need to identify which of these leads is most likely to give. And that process can be very time consuming. And that is why lead scoring is so important, is it helps to make that process more efficient and more effective. And I want to go over exactly what lead scoring is and how you can set it up. In the simplest terms, lead scoring is a way to identify which constituents have the capacity to give and are interested in your nonprofit. So those two criteria have to be met in order to have a really solid score. Again, it's which constituents actually have the capacity to give, they have the money, they have the time to volunteer, and they are interested in your nonprofit, and they're showing you their interest through their behaviors. And so we're going to go over that in a little bit more. First, lead scoring, 101. There are two important components to lead scoring. I just talked about those, but let's break it down a little further. First, grading measures your interest in a prospect, while scoring measures a prospect's interest in your nonprofit. I'm going to use the words constituents, prospects, lead, donors, somewhat interchangeably. But ultimately, what I'm referring to here is the leads or folks that are potential supporters that are coming into your organization through marketing efforts, who are then being cultivated, converting into making a gift. That's what we're talking about. So first, grading measures your interest in a prospect, and scoring measures a prospect's interest in your nonprofit. It's actually the combination of the grade and the score that allows you to prioritize your limited time on the most engaged supporters with that highest capacity to give. The folks that are most interested in your content, most interested in your nonprofit, and have that capacity to make a gift to support your incredible mission. That's who we're trying to look at. That's lead scoring 101. So determining who is interested in your nonprofit, this can be a process that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. Lead scoring can help you do this efficiently and effectively at scale. It does this by assigning certain values around certain interactions. I'm going to go over that in much more detail. So an example here from Operation Gratitude, one of our clients, here's a volunteer who's actually there filling out care packages for troops. They're showing the nonprofit that they are very interested in the work that they are doing. That's a behavior that they are doing, and you can actually assign a score to that behavior, which will help you automate the process. Again, more on that in just a minute. So how does lead scoring really work? Like the actual mechanics of how it works. There are three key steps. The first thing you need to do is determine the lead to donor conversion rate for all of your leads. So what do I mean by that? Lead to donor conversion rate. This simply means that you need to identify how many new leads have been acquired in the last 12 months. How many people have filled out a Facebook lead form, have subscribed to your email newsletter, have given you their contact information, have maybe responded to a direct mail that was not a solicitation for a gift yet. Just something to get their contact information into your system. How many leads, new leads are in the last 12 months? Now identify how many of those have actually made a donation. And you take the number of donors and you divide that by the total number of leads, and that is your lead to donor conversion rate. You want to understand what that rate is overall. It's a good benchmark for you to work off of. Next, you want to actually determine which behaviors lead to donations. For example, like that example I just gave, have they volunteered or have they benefited from your programs? We were talking about Brack adopting that dog earlier. He benefited from the Humane Society's programming. Does that grouping actually convert at a higher rate? That's what we're going to see. You can look at other things like, what is your prospect's location? Are they in your city where your nonprofit does work? Or if you're a national nonprofit, are they in a state with a cluster of donors where you might have a major gift officer, you might have an in-person event? Those clusterings really help. These are different attributes that should all be listed out. I'm going to go over that in detail later, but just to give you an idea, that's what you want to do, is you want to cluster these behaviors. And then you want to compare the close rate of donors with each of these attributes. So what is that close rate for people who volunteer versus people who have benefited from the program? So what's that close rate? How does that look against that benchmark? So again, just using that example of the Humane Society, let's say you go, and we just toured a Humane Society the other day, and you can go and you can volunteer to walk a dog. If you do that, what's your likelihood to become a donor? What's your lead to donor conversion rate versus, say, in the case of Brack, where he adopted that dog, what's his probability or conversion rate in order to get into making a contribution, a financial contribution? Is one higher than the other? So that's really how lead scoring works in a more detailed way. So you got to ask yourself what information you have about the contacts in your database that makes them more likely or less likely to become a donor. It might not be all the information that they are giving to you, right? They're giving you lots of information, but there are certainly some things that they are giving you that are more important than others. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, you might value attending an in-person event higher than opening an email, meaning that a lead who attends an event, you might think that that's more valuable to them becoming a donor than them just opening an email from you. then again, you may value clicking on an email higher than actually opening that email, right? You've got someone who opens the email, who reads the email, but then you got that person who clicks on the email, and that interaction is more valuable. You want to identify the various data points and then weight them. Again, more on this in detail in a few, but you want to weight them with a score. And of course, weighting each data point can be very time consuming. But the good news is that there is technology that can also help you do this efficiently. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, I want to recap the importance of lead scoring for you. Why is this so important? Lead scoring helps everyone understand which contacts to prioritize creating those relationships with based on their interest in supporting your mission and their capacity to give. Their capacity to give. So it's those two things, interest and capacity. Lead scoring aims to really simplify this process for identifying which donors your major gift officers should really connect with through the use of strategic scoring systems. And we're going to go over every little detail of that system in a minute. Now, I did just a moment ago promise that there is some technology that can help make this process more effective and save you time. And that technology is called predictive lead scoring. And I want to share a little bit about what predictive lead scoring is. It's essentially lead scoring, but with the help of machine learning and artificial intelligence, it can actually help you identify patterns based on the most recent prospect data across all your prospects and give you the most up-to-date and insightful information regarding all of your leads. And it does this by bucketing them. Unfortunately, not all nonprofit CRMs offer predictive lead scoring, but one of them does, and it really stands out above the rest, especially because we found it to be incredibly easy to use. It's really effective and it's affordable. And that CRM is actually HubSpot. So why we love HubSpot for predictive lead scoring is that it has predictive lead scoring where many nonprofits don't, or CRMs don't, but it also offers free use of their CRM for all nonprofits and 40% off of all their other products. So it makes it cost effective and efficient to implement lead scoring at your organization with the power of HubSpot. There are some other CRMs that offer it as well. And some of those offer nonprofit discounts too. So you definitely want to check out and see if your CRM offers lead scoring. Okay, so how does predictive lead scoring work? The details of that, because we talked about lead scoring in general. It uses this machine learning and AI to determine which of your leads are most likely to give. So it looks at demographic data such as zip code, where the person is located, what's their age, what's the age of that donor. It looks at that demographic data to determine their likelihood. It also looks at their interactions. So things like, are they coming to your website? Are they viewing your videos? Are they clicking on your emails? Are they attending a volunteer activation? And it looks at both of those demographic and interaction data, and it actually automatically calculates what their lead score is, and it adjusts it across your contacts. So there's a lot of information about your prospective donors inside your CRM, and it really allows you to determine the probability that that lead will convert into a donor. And it focuses on these two main contact properties: the likelihood to actually close and the contact priority, how important that contact is to your major gift officers. So the likelihood to close is essentially the score that represents the percentage of probability of a contact closing as a donor within the next 90 days. That timeline is super important because we are fundraisers, we need money now. And so we're focusing on the likelihood that that donor will close in the next 90 days. And that's really the likelihood to score to close number. So what does this mean in terms of a percentage? Well, essentially, contacts with a close probability value of 22 have a 22% chance of becoming a donor in the next 90 days. So that number is really important, and it's dynamically updated on the contact. So the contact property that I mentioned, this represents 4 equally sized tiers. Again, looking at all your contacts. Tiers are labeled with letters A, B, C, and D. So each tier represents the value based on the probability of close. Because each tier is evaluated against the effectiveness of the other tiers, it's possible that these will actually shift over time. They will shift over time. This is all done using AI and machine learning. You can also use predictive lead scoring to allow your nonprofit to actively manage your lead scoring process without you having to manually revisit it. So that's a really cool feature within the HubSpot ecosystem, is that you can actually have this process automatically update so that you're not having to revisit and look at the behaviors and say, when somebody volunteered, did they actually convert at a higher rate? Or if they clicked on this email, did they really convert? You get to analyze that, which is very cool. If you're new to HubSpot or you don't have HubSpot, you may see lower scores in your top tier groupings. And that just means that, that top tier, like the ones who are most likely to convert, if you don't have enough data yet, those numbers will be quite low. But as you accumulate more data over time, these will actually shift, and they'll make the criteria for falling into that top tier much higher. Meaning, at first, if somebody clicks on an email and they make a contribution, then that's going to impact the tier A. But over time, as many more interactions are booked, then it begins to weight those interactions, and it becomes harder and harder to get into that top tier, because we all know that there's only so much time for the major gift officers. So they want to focus on top tier prospects only. And it just takes a little bit of time for the AI to determine what your tier should be. So yeah, that's just really important to understand the contact property and how it's tiered. So predictive lead scoring, what's really cool is that predictive lead scoring values that, is a value that you'll see based on the data that's unique to your CRM. It's not across all of them. And it kind of gives you the most insight into how likely a donor is to close. Again, not just that particular donor, but against all the other donors inside of your database. So you can then use filters to segment your best or worst leads. And you can do this to effectively channel your marketing efforts and your major donor outreach efforts on those donors who are most active, most interested, and have the highest capacity to give. And that's based on really what is happening inside your CRM, the characteristics that are shared by your most generous supporters, location, age, net worth, things like that, and the interactions that they share, be it attending an event, volunteering, picking up a phone, email, click, sending a text message. All those things get added in automatically, and they get calculated so that your team doesn't have to. So you can use these calculations, and you can have conversions across your fundraising and conversations rather across your fundraising and marketing teams about what's working to convert those leads. So you can use these calculations to really drive a conversation and say, hey, marketing team, I'm seeing that this stuff really matters with the donors that I'm getting major gifts from. And that's really helpful for your marketing team to prioritize what type of content to put out there, because it's based off of what's actually working. A good example of this is maybe your marketing team is considering whether or not you should feature a beneficiary in your email campaign. Or maybe it's actually even thinking about something that takes more effort, like featuring a beneficiary in a video, right? That's going to take a lot of production time. Well, we can actually see, does content like in an email, which is easier to execute, convert or inspire that donor to give? And if so, then we can apply that logic to a bigger piece of content like a video. So that's the kind of conversation that you can have when you're using predictive lead scoring, because it's really analyzing your data across all of your contacts, and it's giving you a sense of what's working and what's not working. So it sounds like there's some similarities between lead scoring and predictive lead scoring, but these are actually different. and I want to just declaratively describe what the difference is between them, right? Predictive lead scoring uses machine learning and AI to help you determine the value of your contacts. That value is based off of their likelihood to give and meaning their interest and their capacity to give, the actual ability to come up with the cash, right? But it's using it automatically, and it's comparing it across all of your contacts. Lead scoring is this overall process of assigning value to each lead to prioritize your outreach. So think about that as a more manual process, where predictive lead scoring is a more dynamic process that happens in the background for you. So I want to talk about which data points really matter. This is where you'll learn how to assign values to various interactions. Both explicit and implicit data are critical to lead scoring. And this is the part in the webinar where we're going to talk about how to assign actual individual values. So explicit data, this is information that is stated or shared by prospects through any of their direct interactions with your nonprofit. Things like filling out a survey, or completing a lead form, or a donation form, or registering for an event. Examples include demographic and firmographic data. Demographic data are things like job title, things like the donor's age. Firmographic data are things like the donor's net worth or the donor's annual income. Those are things that you can acquire through prospect research, which I'm sure many of the folks on this webinar do. So demographic data, things like job title and age. Firmographic data, stuff like net worth and annual income. And these are all explicit data. You actually want to identify about 10 demographic and firmographic data points and assign a score to each of these based on how big of an impact you feel like they have on their on like the priority, on their likelihood to give and their capacity to give to your organization. So your total score for all of these data points should be equal to 100. So let's use these examples, right? Let's say a job title is one of the things that you want to do, and you create a spreadsheet and you say, okay, job title, age, these are demographic data points that matter. Let's say they're a CEO or a business owner. That might have a score of a 10 when compared to a job title of an associate, right? An associate might have a job title of 0 or 5. It all depends on your organization and like your capacity. But let's say that you assign a higher point value to a CEO or business owner job title. If you have a really robust planned giving program, as many nonprofits do, you might assign a value of 10 to someone who is 65 plus in age. You might assign a value of 5 to someone who's between the ages of 45 and 64. So that gives you a comparable where you're saying someone who's 65 plus is more important for our planned giving program. That's why it's 10 points, versus somebody who's 45 to 65, that's 5 points, versus somebody who's under 45, we're going to assign 0 points, because we know that data it suggests that person is less likely to participate in our planned giving program. So we don't want our major gift officers focusing their outreach on them. So you actually want to customize your values, the values that you assign to these, based on your fundraising strategy and your unique approach, right? So if you want, for example, to really grow a robust monthly giving program, then you might actually assign a higher value to somebody who is younger than you would somebody who's older. You just have to base it on what your fundraising strategy is and apply the kind of logic there. The second thing is implicit data. So we just talked about explicit data. Implicit data is information that is indirectly inferred or collected, from this prospect's donor behavior with your nonprofit. So, behaviors that impact the score positively might be something like a donor or prospect or lead views your landing page, they open your email, they actually watch a video that you've produced. Those are all positive interactions. They're showing you that they are interested in your organization, but you're inferring that interest based on their interactions. Behaviors that impact score negatively can also be examples of implicit data. So let's say that you have a donor that is getting a new donor welcome series, right? And you're thinking, I think this is a very good prospect for a mid-level gift because they made their first gift was $500. And we think that they're a good prospect for a mid-level gift based on that and their age and their location. And they opened up this email and they unsubscribed from our welcome series. That would have a negative score because they're saying that they are less interested in the content. Now, of course, it might just be that they don't want email, they want something else. So this is why it's inferred. It's not perfect, but it's inferred. Also, another example might be somebody who hasn't visited your website in the last 60 days. So let's say that you're driving people to your website. You're driving them to view your impact data or the stories that you're telling. That would be an example of somebody who hasn't visited might get a lower score. So you want to identify, just like we did on the others, you want to identify about 10 positive and negative data points and assign a score to each of these. And of course, these should also total 100 in value when you add up all of them. So again, just like, let's use the examples that I just provided, right? So landing page view. Let's say somebody views a landing page, we're going to give them plus 10 points. Somebody opens an email, we're going to give them 5 points for opening that email. But if they actually watch a video, we're going to give them 15 points for watching that video. Why? Because opening an email is the least amount of interest. It shows the least amount. You opened an email. Oh, you clicked on the email, you landed on this landing page, you're showing more interest. That's 10 points. Watching a video, that takes a lot of time. So that's actually going to get 15 points. So again, this is, these are unique to your fundraising strategy, but that gives you an idea of positive interactions. Behaviors that impact the score negatively, like I talked about, is let's say somebody unsubscribes. We're going to reduce their score by, say, 25 points, negative 25 points. That's a bigger action saying, I'm not interested in your email content, than say not visiting your website in the past 60 days. So for that, we might just have a negative 10. It gives you a sense of kind of how to value these things. Again, remember, it's all about how likely they are to make a contribution in the next 90 days. So if somebody attends like an annual event, a gala or a beach cleanup or some sort of volunteer activation, you might give that a really high point value. And that's that dynamic element of predictive lead scoring that's so critical because let's say your gift officer has a portfolio that they manage and they can see in real time, okay, these are the top priority prospects for the next 90 days. These are the ones that I really need to engage with and reach out to. And that might change over time because we know if somebody volunteers or they attend an event, they're way more likely to make another contribution in the few days after that or complete a survey in the few days after that than they are as more time goes on. So I just want to highlight that dynamic element comes into play and it can adjust somebody's score. It is dynamic and it's based on their behavior in real time. What I really love about lead scoring is that it takes this best-in-class for-profit approach and it applies it to a nonprofit. So that's what Brack was mentioning at the top. I've done a webinar on this. I think the last webinar we gave actually was 3 for-profit approaches to apply to a nonprofit. And this is just an example. So I want to share, just one more example from the for-profit space and kind of to highlight the point here. So we use predictive lead scoring here at CauseMic, right, to determine which of our leads are most interested in growing their revenue and their impact at their nonprofit, because they're the ones who are most likely to buy our services or to need our help. So we determine this based on things like nonprofit size, where they're located, what category are they in? Are they in a category where we have a lot of experience, where we have a lot of other clients in that category? What technology are they using? What technology are they leveraging? Is it technology that we're familiar with or technology that we help people offboard from? all of those things get calculated in. But we also look at their behavioral data. So these are things like, are they subscribing to Switchboard, are by, every other week email? I never know what to say. Is that bi-monthly, bi-weekly? I don't know. But, are they actually reading our email content? Are they attending a webinar like the people who are here today? Or are they coming to CauseMic Amplify, an in-person event that we host? Obviously, that takes more time than attending a webinar or reading an email. So we assign different values to these different interactions, both implicit and explicit data, and that allows us to determine which prospects our sales team should focus on, because those are going to be the ones that are most qualified and most interested, while our marketing team aims to deliver value to all of our prospects, all of our leads. And so too does our sales team, but we don't have infinite salespeople. So the same can be held true at your nonprofit. And this was my experience when I was fundraising at Team Rubicon was like, well, look, we only have so many gift officers, and we have lots of leads that the marketing team is generating through corporate engagement, through paid social, through brand awareness campaigns, all this amazing effort to bring about brand awareness and drive traffic, convert leads. But ultimately, our major gift team had to focus our limited time on key things. And so with lead scoring and predictive lead scoring, we actually have the ability to prioritize based on a donor's capacity to give and their interest, or a prospect's capacity to give and a prospect's interest in your nonprofit. And so I think that's just really important, because it's this best-in-class for-profit tool that you can apply at your nonprofit to really help drive revenue, which ultimately we all need. Okay, I promised Q&A. I know that this was a really meaty topic. I went kind of quickly through it because I wanted to leave time for Q&A. But before we get there, I want to ask this poll question. So we're going to give you about a minute. It'll give me a chance to get some water. Oh, very interesting. We're going to leave this poll open here because we're getting this is really helpful, especially for Q&A. It seems like so far we got one person who actually is using predictive lead scoring. 92% of people who responded to the survey, the poll, are not using it. A lot of people don't know if their CRM is has predictive lead scoring or has lead scoring at all, which is really interesting. Some say yes, so that's really interesting. Lead scoring can feel really complicated, and it can feel complex. But what's really interesting is it does take a little bit of time to get set up. But when you establish it, it actually saves a lot of time. So that's what I really love about it. Okay, last chance, put your survey responses in if you feel so inclined. And then before we dive into Q&A, just want to plug here, you can use this QR code. You can gain access to all of our webinars and all of our events. The webinar that I talked about, 3 for-profit methods to apply to your nonprofit, you can watch the recording. You can access that for free. We have this awesome webinar coming up, which, especially for those of you who aren't using predictive lead scoring and maybe your CRM does not offer it, which there are about 27% here that don't. It's how to get a funder, a donor, to actually pay for your nonprofit's digital transformation, to provide you with a capacity grant so that you can afford the systems like HubSpot as an example. So that's an upcoming webinar. But anyway, check out this QR code. We'd love to see you there. We put a lot of effort into this content and would love an audience for it. Okay, with that, we're gonna get to some of the Q&A. So, Brad, what do we got?
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. We got several questions coming in here. I'm going to try to kind of toss them to you in a good order. The first one is, this sounds hard to implement. How do I get started?
Yes, fair. I know, especially predictive lead scoring. and implicit and explicit data and all of that. The best place to get started is with a simple spreadsheet. If you want an example of that spreadsheet, reach out to us. There's our email, crew@CauseMic. We'll send you one. But essentially what you want to do is you just want to find those 10 interactions that really you think matter. Opening an email, attending an event, clicking on an email, unsubscribing, assign a positive or negative value. Then you want to identify the 10 behavioral things. So that's where I would start. I would say, what are the characteristics of a person? Their net worth, their age, their location. What are the interactions that really matter? And I would start there. That's where I would start. And that does assume that your CRM or your marketing automation tool has lead scoring. If you're not sure, I would start by looking that up, Googling it. CauseMic's blog and CauseMic's YouTube channel has some great reviews and different things that talk about it. So you can check those out too, and you can see, does Salesforce, does HubSpot, does Virtuous, like, what CRM are you on? That's where I would start. Great question.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, can you share the lead to donor conversion rate again? And I think that was back on slide 8.
Sure.
I'm assuming maybe they want the actual, I think you shared a formula there.
Yeah. So how to calculate your lead to donor, that's just looking back on the last 12 months. How many new leads came into your CRM? Leads being defined as somebody who's not yet given. All of the email addresses that have come in, new contacts. Then you want to say how many of those people, how many made a contribution. So when I said haven't donated, I meant just everybody, inclusive of people who've donated and have not donated. People who subscribe to your email newsletter, or maybe they accessed like some sort of downloadable asset from you. And then you want to take the donors and you want to take the folks who've donated, the number of donors divided by all of those leads, and that's your lead to donor conversion rate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What is a good step if you're getting lots of interest with your outreach, but not a lot of giving?
You're getting lots of okay, so this would kind of depend on what they mean by lots of interactions, but I think what they might mean is people are clicking on their emails, people are watching their videos, they might be engaging on their social media post, but they're not making that contribution. And I would say that actually surveying folks would be one thing that I would do. Survey to find out what it is that they value most about your nonprofit's impact, and then center your storytelling around those things. It might actually be around the time. It might be around their capacity to give right now. It sounds like they're really interested, but they might not have the capacity. So I would actually look at who are the donors who have given, and are there characteristics? Are they at certain companies? Do they have a certain age? Do they have a certain net worth? Who are the people who are giving money? And what is the way that they're giving? Are they giving online or offline? Are they giving one time, or are they giving recurring gifts? And I would begin to actually build a lookalike audience using the people who are actually contributing. And I would target my marketing towards those who are contributing. Right now, a lot of organizations, because of, say, inflation, mass market fundraising audience is really lagging compared to mid-major gifts, where the stock market's at a historically high point. And so you actually might need to shift your focus towards more mid and major donor outreach, and really focusing around what those people need.
Awesome. In that answer, Matt, you mentioned surveying your audience. Is that as simple as just reaching out to someone who's showing interest to find out what the friction point is and why they aren't giving, or is there something deeper to that?
Yeah, so there's something a little deeper actually. Here's an example of a photo from one of our clients, the Surfrider Foundation. They do beach cleanups. When they came to CauseMic, there was a lot of friction in their beach cleanup process. They actually had people registering on paper, and they would go to beach cleanup and they would fill out a paper waiver, and they would help clean up our beaches and make sure that they were free of debris and plastic pollution. It helps keep our waterways clean. Really cool. But actually, people who volunteer are way more likely to make a gift. So sending out a survey immediately after this person volunteered and ask them what to rank their volunteer experience, getting ahead of the check-in process, saying these are the supplies that you should be bringing, automating that process and making it more tech forward, created space where if somebody had a positive interaction at the beach cleanup, then you can follow up and ask them to consider joining the Surf Riders membership, becoming a member, making a monthly recurring gift to the Surf Rider Foundation. So it's actually a little bit more detailed than just sending out a survey and asking why you do or don't give. It's thinking about what are those supporters who are most likely to make a mid or major gift, to take that next step, and tailoring your survey around those interactions so that you can get a little bit more information to understand what would drive them to take that next step, what type of content or what type of which channel do they prefer. Those are the kinds of things I would be asking for in a survey.
Awesome. Thinking about that surf rider experience, do you feel like volunteers are the most likely to donate?
Volunteers are among the category of those that are most likely to donate. One-time donors are 3 times more likely to give a recurring gift within the first 3 weeks after they make that initial donation. Beneficiaries, people who've benefited from your programming, are more likely to make a contribution, volunteer, provide a testimonial. Not everything has to be about a mid or major gift. That's not going to be the upgrade strategy for everybody. But yeah, folks who volunteer, folks who make that one-time gift are more likely to give a recurring gift. People who have a positive interaction, like let's say, Brack, like that example where you adopted Spencer Strider from the Humane Society, you've had this positive interaction, you're more likely to make a contribution to the Humane Society. So it's unique to each organization, but there are trends that say that volunteers are more likely to give than non-volunteers for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for giving Spencer a shout out.
Yeah.
What is the lowest percentage score a lead should have that warrants the most time from your team?
Well, this really depends on the number of folks you have working on your development team or your major gifts team, right? And so general rule of thumb, about 150 prospects per major gift officer is a good number. So how many people fall into that 150, what score do you have to have in order to keep about 150? At CauseMic, we call them ideal customers. So we have about 200 instead of 150. And so that list is dynamic and changes based on a prospect's interest in the organization. So I would recommend starting at the 150 mark. That's about what a typical gift officer can handle. And that's per person. So when you think about the score, you just need to layer it to how many people fall into that score group.
Awesome. And then sort of thinking along the lines of the scoring process, this question is, do you ever create a campaign aimed at the lower scoring people in the hopes of increasing their interest, or do you just abandon those leads?
I would not focus my time and energy on low scoring leads. Be strengths based, focus particularly your gift officer time on leads with the highest score, because these are people who are engaged and have a capacity to give. Your marketing team, they can focus on cultivating those people who don't have a high score. You want to increase their interactions. You want to figure out what makes them click, and you want to get them at the right time. And that's your marketing team's department. That's their job. But when it comes to your fundraising, your executive director, your major gift officer, your chief program officer, whoever is in charge of those things, those people's time is very limited. Focus on the prospects with the highest score. That's where you're going to get the highest ROI.
Awesome. And I think we've got 3 more questions that are posted here, and I think they're all going to kind of maybe be answered at the same time. So I'll try to kind of keep them spun up the right way for you here. How can my nonprofit get plugged into HubSpot? Like, is there a simple process for that, or is it do they have to go through CauseMic? How does that process look like?
Yeah, we actually have this email us at crew@CauseMic right there. We've got a great resource. We've put together a pretty cool resource for nonprofits. I'm literally just pulling it up right now. It's great. We will email this to you. Oops. There we go. Am I sharing this properly? Let's see. Am I sharing this? Oh no, I'm not yet sharing it. There we go. Sorry, we're living in the future. Yeah, we have this great resource, and take a look. It talks about all the benefits of HubSpot. This demo is really great. Katya on our team, who's our HubSpot lead consultant on HubSpot, created this demo. You can watch it. All these articles our team has put together. There's case studies. There's all these cool things. There's even videos that link to our YouTube channel where we go into, HubSpot versus Salesforce and how to integrate them versus other things. So I encourage you to take a peek here, because there's no sales pressure. The HubSpot team isn't going to be following up with you. So yeah, email us. We can also just share this link, I think, right here in the chat. So there you go. Start right there.
Awesome. And then could you talk a little bit about how long this process typically takes to set up?
Lead scoring. That process, to get started, let's say that, assuming that you're on a CRM where it allows you to do lead scoring, you should be able to get this process established within a week. But in terms of active hours, it should be probably about 10 hours, and that would be creating those scores, then setting up the actual interactions, meaning like the values inside your CRM. And then the work is in, okay, how is it working? Having the conversation between fundraising and marketing to talk about what's actually what type of content is driving. That process takes some time. It also takes time, like let's say if you are on HubSpot, it takes about 60 days for the AI, if you're using predictive lead scoring, to get to a point where you can really reliably rely on that data, where it has enough data where the score is going to be meaningful. So it's about a 90-day process when you take all that into account. But in terms of number of hours, start simple, get those 10 interactions, behaviors, and 10 data points down. And that process should really only take you a couple of hours to noodle on.
Awesome. That's it. You did it.
Cool.
High
We
five.
did it.
We did it.
We did it, nonprofit community. Thank you. Again, shameless plug, please head over to our events page, but also let us know what topics you are interested in. We are real people over here, as you can tell. So email us, crew@CauseMic. Tell us a topic that you want us to present on, or throw it up in the chat. Give us a call. There's lots of ways to get a hold of us. Please let us know what topics you're interested in. Register. We'd love to have you here. So thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a quick survey at the end, and